Obstacle number 4, fatigue. Now that you're well into the swamp, it's important to note that this next obstacle is as fundamental to the human experience as change itself. Fatigue will rear its ugly head every single morning when that alarm clock shouts you awake to get your busy day started, plummeting you into the storm of life and threatening to rob you of appreciation before you've even stepped foot out the door. Fatigue is a normal part of life, and to some degree, it's inevitable. I will reiterate a lesson from a previous chapter. Your acceptance of the inevitable reduces your experience of resistance when things get out of control. What does that mean in terms of fatigue? There is nothing that makes fatigue more of an obstacle than resisting it. Remember the importance of your attention. Where your attention goes, something grows. Another way to restate this simple principle in the context of your lesson here is that what you resist persists. Allow the days that are difficult to simply be, and work around them doing what you can, knowing that when things swing back up, you can ride that wave far forward again. In this way, you can practice minimizing the downside and maximizing the upside of life's ebbs and flows. Think of anyone who you perceive as successful, joyful, and creating what they want in life. No matter who they are, they only have 24 hours in the day, the same as you. They do not have more energy or time than you either. They're just more efficient with what they have based on their choices and how they respond to life's inherent challenges. So what does it mean to be efficient? Successful people make better decisions than unsuccessful people. That's it. The compounding effect of those decisions over time creates massive differences. So invest in the right things. Importantly, I don't define successful here as a metric based on money. Rather, I mean someone who is a role model to you in your life, authentic and contributing positively to others by living a God-centered life. Hopefully you have at least one such role model, but either way, learn to be efficient by making good choices. The Bible is all about judging rightly, and Solomon's prayer to God was for wisdom to be able to judge and govern according to what is good. In return, God blessed him with everything he could ever want. So, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and also everything else good in life, because wisdom gives us the ability to judge rightly. Many situations every day will distract you and pull you away from what is important, especially if you're exhausted. But you can use what you learn and avoid the swamp, returning to gratitude and returning to God. Do this and you will navigate a quicksand trap that many fall victim to daily because of their poor planning and poor choices. When 2020 destroyed the remainder of my dance coaching business and everyone went inside on quarantine, stress levels increased to a maximum and my body just broke. In fact, by late 2019, around the time of that fateful dance cruise, I had already started to feel the effects of burning the candle at both ends for many years. The wave of ambition I experienced shortly after getting fired in 2018 motivated me to make up for lost time, but nobody has unlimited energy. Dealing with online business troubles, developing courses and content, staying up late, drinking caffeine, and teaching and competing professionally all eventually crashed my body. My HPA axis went out of alignment. I started having high cortisol symptoms, my sleep started to suffer, and eventually I burned out. On top of this, I was researching the use of iodine therapeutically and began taking iodine in 2020. I'll spare you the details, and you can read about it in my health book, Dance Your Way Through Life. But iodine, although critical for health and demonized by the establishment, can be tricky to incorporate on a therapeutic level because it has the risk of shutting down or overstimulating your thyroid. Very few people are familiar with the iodine sufficiency studies done by Guy Abraham, Charles Hakala, who I interviewed on my podcast, and David Brownstein. It's all very compelling and definitely worth a look, and there are directories of iodine literate practitioners out there to help you find someone. But long story short, my own efforts with iodine did not pan out too well. The first time I took it was around 2010, and it gave me hyperthyroidism after about a year of taking about 25 milligrams daily. I have theories about why, but I avoided iodine after that because I had nobody who was trained in it to consult me. Come 2020, I started with the same amount I had taken in 2010, but this time it shut my thyroid down and made the stress and HPA symptoms even worse. Isn't science awesome? Then in 2021, I lost my voice and because of the worsening imbalances, stopped exercising altogether except for walking. I was so fatigued, so all over the place with my sleep, and I had no control over what was going on with my body. I had random muscle spasms all over my legs, arms, stomach, and even on my face at times. And my health seemed like it was deteriorating for no apparent reason. As a former professional athlete and trainer, as well as a perfectionist, you can imagine how many times fatigue gave me a one-way, all-expenses-paid trip to the swamp and its surrounding territories. Today, my health is still recovering. In 2024, I was fortunate enough to have insurance and my income changed, so I began investigating my health a little more. I realized I had some heavy metal toxicity, and I started on a lower dose of iodine with promising results. I was able to connect with some good clinicians and exchange notes, and they were all pretty stumped with my story. I guess I'm just that oddball 1 out of a million with the weird exceptions or genetic mysteries. Or it could just be that 15 years of running my nervous system at a maximum as a performer eventually took its toll. In either case, fatigue has been and continues to be a regular obstacle in my life. I thank God that overall I have good health and strength to do everything that I've done, which is quite a lot, but there are still days that can be a challenge for one reason or another. In these days, it is a great opportunity to learn an important spiritual lesson, which is balance. Fatigue teaches you about the importance of balance in creating and maintaining a grateful life. Scarcity waits at every turn to lure you into the swamp and away from God. And one of the biggest sources of scarcity is one that we immediately feel: our own health and well-being being taken away. When you're tired, sick, in pain, or not feeling well, it's like fighting an uphill battle against your own instincts to maintain a grateful state, because you literally feel robbed of the most vital resource, which is your life. To combat fatigue, you need to engage the battle on both the physical and spiritual levels. For the physical, you must ensure that as much energy as possible flows into your life and body through a good diet, exercise, and nutrition. Because all disease is fundamentally a result of imbalances, this requires cultivating a balanced life through accountability over your physical and mental health. Too much or too little of anything will become a problem, with that problem often sending fatigue as its initial messenger. I have a book on health with lots of great researched information in it, and also an online program on the website. Use these resources to learn how to tweak your own routine and help your body and mind stay well equipped for life's seasons. Whatever issues you may have right now, they will be magnified if you are tired, have no energy, own a slow and lethargic body, and do not take care of yourself. And because gratitude is a function of both the body and the mind, your ability to create balance in the two is not just about taking supplements and eating right or avoiding caffeine. Fatigue can strike you mentally, creatively, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. This is the hallmark of the second catalyst of change, which is burnout, and it signals the need for more balance in your life. By addressing the areas of imbalance mindfully and taking accountability over the parts that have been neglected, you will solidify your mind and body so that they may provide you with the vitality needed for handling the storm. Throughout the New Testament, we are encouraged to embrace the trials of our lives as important and valuable experiences that conform our character to Jesus' perfect way of being and draw us closer to God. It is completely counterintuitive to rejoice in having trials, yet this is exactly what the message of the New Testament invites us to do. Why? Because suffering is where character is born and virtues like faith, hope, and love are cultivated. Nobody likes to suffer, especially when we suffer for things we did not commit to or plan or want. Yet God uses all things for the good, and that means that even the trials we find frustrating and painful are all intended and guided by God to shape us into His perfect image. Meditating on what the Bible has to say about suffering is how we wage war with fatigue on a spiritual level. And just like any war, it has to be fought every day because the enemy doesn't take any breaks. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Romans 5, verses 3 through 5. Treasure chest, balance. For many people, the energy to do things that they want to do is a central component to a happy and fulfilled life. Fatigue, then, strikes at many parts of you when it arrives. Your relationships, your health, even your mundane tasks and to-do lists become a burden and source of pain when you're robbed of mental and physical energy. This is an unfavorable state to be in for however long, but within its arid lands, you can learn the skill and practice of balance. When you go to the gym or do something strenuous, fatigue acts as an important benchmark. Depending on the activity, your goals, and so on, this benchmark can either mean that you've had enough or that you should keep going. In either case, fatigue serves a purpose, and this is the point. It's not random, useless, unfair, or anything else that we commonly attribute to it, but rather a reminder, although an unpleasant one, to listen, to go slower, to recuperate, and to nurture. It is a sign that something has gone too far in one direction and requires balancing in the other. When we experience fatigue, it's an indication that something is approaching a critical point. In sports, this critical point is an injury. Keep pushing yourself when your muscles are too tired, and you may very well hurt something and pay the price. Granted, some pushing past this initial indicator is indeed needed for growth, but the point is that fatigue serves its role as a messenger regardless. Likewise, when your mind is fatigued, it's also a sign of imbalance and overuse. For example, too much thinking and analyzing may cause you to make mistakes, which will cost you much more in the long term than waiting and drawing back to recover will cost you in the short term. Because fatigue is unpleasant, it is often mistaken for the enemy rather than the messenger. See past this first impression to the golden treasure that it has to offer you, and you will gain an unlikely ally on the journey ahead. Remember that creating gratitude when you are imbalanced is difficult or can even be impossible because of momentum. What this means is that fatigue is really just delivering you reminders of how to get back into appreciation because something has gone too far in one direction. But to see this and to take action on it requires you to be accountable for the health of your body and mind and work with fatigue rather than working against it. It means being efficient and judging rightly, employing wisdom when most others react with instincts. So what does it mean exactly to be efficient here? A good way to describe this principle is that you are getting as much possible for as little as possible. If a car is fuel efficient, that means that it can travel farther than an average car on the same amount of fuel. How does this apply to your relationship with fatigue and balance? Life, just like the stock market, will rise and crash for as long as you're around. Interestingly enough, how most people respond to the stock market is also how they respond to fatigue. When things are up, they are irresponsible with their resources, and when things are down, they feed the problem more by panicking, creating a greater divide between the swings and maximizing their pain with misplaced energy and focus. It is inevitable for you to be tired. However, there are many things you can do to minimize this inevitable downside, just like there are many ways to minimize the inevitable crashing of the market through good practices like diversification, tax efficiency, and managing your emotions during big changes. To practice being efficient is to create a structure that minimizes the downside of change while maximizing its upside. In this sense, you cannot avoid change, but you can try to skew it in your favor for maximum performance. Every pursuit, from athletics to finance, employs this principle in some way or another. To manage fatigue effectively and navigate out of its barren lands, you must become incredibly efficient through your daily routine, your diet, your rules about life, like who you associate with and when you will disengage a situation, and your overall habits. Because habits exist as belief systems in your mind that have been rewarded with practice and emotion, they are part of the mental structures that determine your energy levels and experience of fatigue. Some exhaustion is unavoidable, but there is a level of fatigue that largely has to do with poor balance in these aforementioned areas, usually stemming from a lack of awareness and training. Look at your own life and adjust structures where necessary, and you will become more efficient, maximizing your upside while minimizing the inevitable downside of this unavoidable life obstacle. And remember, your practice of balance will be tantamount to the journey of mastering gratitude in your life, especially if you want to soar high above and see those precious sights that few will ever get to see. The truth is that big goals require you to go off balance. Even walking requires you to risk falling, and even more can be said of dancing. So big goals will demand courage, risk, and energy. Nobody ever achieved anything meaningful in life by doing the bare minimum and living a perfectly balanced existence. So, just like God said to Joshua before entering the Promised Land, be courageous. Now that you know the importance of balance and fatigue's role in reminding you of it, another important point is accountability. But what does it mean to be accountable? The answer is simple. Be honest and then do what you say. In terms of fatigue, the first part of accountability means to be honest with yourself and decide what it is that you can commit to, accomplish, and maintain. An imbalanced or dishonest answer to these questions will inevitably lead you to burnout and frustration. When fatigue strikes you, remember that it's merely a messenger asking you to slow down and consider important questions for the present moment, as well as the bigger picture. Are you overcommitting? Are you trying to people please? Are you being honest about what you can do? Or are you afraid of looking like a fool? These and other important questions need to be answered because we often get fatigued because of a mismatch between what we say and what we actually want. This chronic inauthenticity can be exhausting. Allowing fatigue to guide you and adjust your path, rather than choosing to wrestle with it as the enemy, is not only the way to avoid losing more energy when you encounter this obstacle, but also the way to hasten your journey out of it as well. Some things require energy and others do not. Learn to tell the difference when you're tired and adjust accordingly regardless of your plans. A tree cannot bear fruit all year round, and nature operates in cycles. Use these timeless insights to discern what to do when fatigue knocks on your door, and you'll avoid the even bigger problems it can often invite if left unchecked. The second important part to accountability is doing what you said you will do. This part is also simple. Once you are honest and clear about how you answer those important questions, take consistent action until it is completed. Let's say, for example, that you are honest with yourself and cannot stand how you feel and look in your body any longer. You've had enough and decide to start going to the gym 3 times per week and decide to change your diet. You read a neat little gratitude book about creating more structures in your life to handle the lows, and now you've got plenty of ideas how to reshape your life from top to bottom. But let's say your first week you go only twice and end up eating cheat meals a few times. Does that mean you were accountable to your new goals? The answer, of course, is no, you were not. Accountability is a black and white thing because it deals with the relationship between what you said and what you did. There is no such thing as being half pregnant, just like there is no such thing as being 80% accountable. There is only 100% accountability to what was said, or 0% accountability. Learning to acknowledge where you honored your word and where you didn't, as well as how to be more specific in language so that you don't commit to the wrong things or overcommit, is an art and a skill that needs to be practiced. To be accountable and to do what you say, to honor your commitments, and to be consistent will provide you with the ability to create and sustain precious balance in your life, even while you do great things. Just like a strong portfolio can mitigate the wild fluctuations of the market over time, a strong character and set of habits help to mitigate the inevitable changes of life from totally derailing a person into the abyss. In terms of gratitude, your accountability to the health of your mind and body, as well as to a balanced life, are vital commitments to honor. You cannot fluctuate wildly in what you decide to do with your time and energy because fatigue will quickly come in to police you and warn you of an impending injury. It is a built-in mechanism to teach you consistency because the Creator is 100% consistent. So then take fatigue as a reminder to adjust, redirect, and get back to consistency, and you will become efficient with your energy and attention. When things are low, you will perform adequately because you've learned to take it slow and focus on the process. While others are complaining and wasting what's left of their precious energy, you've redirected your focus to what can be controlled and where you can honor your word so that you do not lose confidence and do not lose momentum. When things are high, you reinvest those resources that God has blessed you with into things that bear fruit, like your relationships, your business, doing good work, your health routine, or whatever else. While others are flagrantly wasting their time and energy on meaningless things, you're being efficient by compounding your returns and saving for a rainy day with the habits and structures you're solidifying in your routine. This is the wisdom of balance, and the key to understand is that it's not like a pair of scales, but more like a juggler. Balance is not a static but a living, dynamic thing. It is a dance, and it is always shifting with the music of life. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Philippians 4:11-13. Trail markings, fatigue. The trail markings for navigating out of fatigue are the following. Set rules for the important areas of your life. Rules are important for maintaining consistency and balance in your energy. An example is that at 10 p.m. you turn off all technology and begin your bedtime routine. Another example is that you do not eat after a certain time in the evening. Look at the areas of your life where you suffer the most fatigue and examine what needs to be adjusted in the rules surrounding how you perform in this area. Manage your time effectively by knowing what type of activity matches the energy level you have available. For example, if you're trying to do creative work but are exhausted, shift instead to something more task-based, like doing the dishes, data entry, cleaning, or organizing. Basically things that require little creative effort. An incongruence between energy level and usage of time only leads to more fatigue and is a signal that your approach to your schedule requires adjustment. Learn the natural rhythm of your body. To be efficient is to understand alignment, in particular your alignment to the environment and the situation at hand. Resistance and fatigue come only when we persist in an out-of-alignment state. For instance, if you know your peak energy hours are in the morning, do not waste that time by doing things that can be done with lower energy levels. If you know that certain situations and people drain you faster than normal, align yourself accordingly through rules and healthy boundaries. Cultivate a health routine consisting of at least regular exercise and a good diet appropriate for your age, sex, goals, body type, and so on. For those seeking optimal performance, there are countless supplements and modalities available to enhance mental and physical potency. Research, look into things, try, and never settle for an average life because gratitude is not an average mindset. For help on this, check out my book, Dance Your Way Through Life, and the associated online health program. Remember that all trials and tribulations in your life, including fatigue, are designed to cultivate your endurance. Paul talks about running the race, and it truly is a race. Until we see God face to face and can rejoice in our eternal lives, this life will exhaust every aspect of your body and mind because the enemy is tireless and the Genesis curse is real. Lean on the word daily, find strength in suffering by consulting what the Bible has to say about it, and develop a habit of prayer. I discuss all three of these strategies in my book, The Way Home.